I've got whole armies painted up. I could field a bunch of different armies if my son hasn't lost all my models by now. He likes the game too, so. Yeah, that poor kid, he grew up in a family surrounded by all my nerdy friends. He had no chance. Red shirt right here on the stairs. Am I ever going to explain how Mac got his pup to be accorded neutral ground? Well, he filled out the paperwork, and there was a $40 fee. Yeah, we'll get into that at some point. Red shirt behind him. Did I actually write Codex Alera on a bet? Indeed. This was before I'd gotten published, and I was on several different writing loops on the internet, and there were all these discussions that went on constantly. And these were discussions of, I say discussions, I should say it like that went on constantly, because these were the kind of arguments that, pretty much you hit the reply button, then your caps lock, then start typing. And, I was, a loudmouth kid on the internet at the time with all the other loudmouth kids on the internet, and there was a big argument that came up over the concept of the sacred idea versus the creator's presentation. And the idea behind the sacred idea is that if you've got a good enough idea, you can sell a book that's wildly successful, even if you write terribly. And the example they held up to embody that was Jurassic Park. Okay, yeah, their example, not mine. Whereas I was on the other side of the argument that said that you could take the oldest, tiredest, worst idea in the entire world, and if you had a good enough writer writing it and handling it, he could make it fresh and new and create something new out of that was still valuable. I mean, how many versions of Romeo and Juliet have you seen? It's unreal. So the discussion went on back and forth, and finally this guy said, you know what? Why don't you put your money where your mouth is? Why don't you let me give you a bad idea and see you write a series out of it? And being the arrogant kid I was at the time, I said, no, I've got a better idea. Why don't you give me 2 terrible ideas, and I'll use them both. Gotta learn when to keep my mouth shut. So the kid says, all right, first terrible idea. He says, Lost Roman Legion. I am so sick of Lost Roman Legion stories. All Lost Roman Legion should have been found by now. So Lost Roman Legion's your first idea. I said, okay, what's number 2? And he says, Pokemon. So I went and researched it. And I realized that I went and researched the Lost Roman Legion, which is they usually mean the 9th Hibernia Legion when they talk about that, which is a legion that disappeared while marching in friendly territory and marched into a thunderstorm and never marched out. And to my way of thinking, probably that territory wasn't quite so friendly. But on the other hand, what if they went somewhere else? Okay, where did they go? Land the Pokemon, obviously. So I went and researched Pokemon, which is itself a fusion of 2 ideas, one of which is the Shinto religion, with the idea that within all natural things there is a vital spirit of life called a kami, and if you've got like a little pebble, there's a little teeny kami, and if you've got a great big mountain, there's a great big kami inside it, and you'd better respect it. And you should respect the pebble too, but if you don't, what's it going to do? It's a pebble. It really is limited in terms of how it can harm you. And then they took that idea, and then for Pokemon, they took that idea and they fused it with professional wrestling. So I said, okay, you know what? Let's take that Shinto idea and use that, and I'll infuse the natural things in the land of the Pokemon world with these spirits, and the Lost Roman Legion will show up there, and I mixed them together, and I gave them a couple of thousand years to have a complete apocalypse on their planet, and then form a society that started growing, and kind of documented everything that happened, and then said, okay, this is the point at which I'm going to start. And I started writing it with a boy on a farm, because that's where fantasy starts. Not my rule. That's just how it started. And started writing that. And then as I got into it, I was like, oh, this is actually a really good story. I like this. I think I can do something with it. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to put this up on the list because that's publishing it, and it could cause me a headache selling it later. So I'm just going to keep this. I'm not actually going to put that up there. And the guy sends an email back. It's like, in other words, I won. And now I can go, yeah, you won. Sure. Right here.
Why does more influence technology way?
Why does Mort not influence technology the way Harry does? Mort is not nearly so powerful or disruptive or conflicted as Dresden is. Mort is very comfortable with being a coward. His soul is at peace in that sense, which is one of the reasons why, one of the things that causes the whole magical haywire thing is the fact that human beings in general are very conflicted creatures, and that sort of tends to put off their baser nature conflicting with the better angels of their nature, kind of puts off the interference that causes all the trouble around them. It wasn't always shorting out technology. 100 years ago it was, 200 years ago it was making milk go sour. Before that, you got weird spots on your body. I mean, that sort of thing changes as you go along. The rules of magic are always changing. And it also means that if it's a fairy magician, somebody like Leah, she can play Nintendo all day if she wants to. I mean, she's not conflicted at all about her nature. No, I'll turn him into a dog. Really, it'll be good for you. Let's see, trying to get folks we haven't hit yet. Back here by the pillars, please.
The other book you're talking about writing would that be part of a whole other, like, 6 or
Oh, the other book that I was talking about writing? It is the way I've got it, I see it in my head now. It's a trilogy that is actually the prequel trilogy for my epic fantasy epic that I'm going to write someday. It's so epic there has to be a prequel trilogy. or maybe it won't be that epic, but I am going to write it eventually when I grow up. What? No, it's not in Alara. We're going off to somewhere else. It's very heavily influenced by the Black Company, and we'll kind of we'll run with it from there. It's sort of set in the days immediately after the end of the giant apocalyptic fantasy war, which it didn't really end spectacularly well because the heroes there blew it. And while we're not quite as apocalyptic as like a Brandon Sanderson novel, he's happy to write novels where the end of the world came and now you've got to live through it. It's not quite that bad, but it is exploring kind of a little bit different themes than we normally see. There won't be any marching to Mount Doom. It'll be more like how we put the world back together after these idiots shattered it. But right here, sunglasses on head.
Do you really believe it's possible to be both a Star Wars and a Star Trek fan at the same time?
Do I really believe it's possible to be both a Star Wars and a Star Trek fan? Probably, but nobody's equal. You can't tell me anybody is Star Wars and Star Trek, I like them both, unless it's like my wife who doesn't care for either of them, I mean, she'll watch them for me, but she's always got to make fun of them. Over here, glasses.
Sometimes people say, are you going to be this in the character? And you say, I'm not going to tell you, but inside are you sometimes thinking, yeah, I think I will know that they said that, you ever think their ideas that way?
She says that when people ask me if I'm ever going to do blank with a character, and I do that, I'm not going to tell you, think back at them. Do I ever think to myself, and actually take inspiration from that? My lawyer told me to tell you no. But the fact of the matter is that if it does touch off a good idea in my head, yeah, I'll use it. I want to write the best story I can. Occasionally, if people have asked me stuff, I went, yeah, I almost do have to do that. I've got to get dressed in a giant bunny costume sometime. That would be awesome. Right here in the middle. Well, yeah, but she can make her hair and her eyes any color she wants to. The question here is that the Lenanchi's nature seems to conflict with that of summer, or with that of winter, and she seems to be much more summery, and she wears lots of red and green and so on. Yeah, no spoilers. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who haven't read the book, but